I think. Let's try this again. All right, September, Sunday, the first day of September, 2019. I'm still holding a yard sale, but I have no customers. The one group who came by didn't want anything. However, I've done okay. $67.75 is nothing to sneeze at. Now I'm going to just blather on and hope I get a few listeners. If not, you will be able to listen when it's archived. Oh Lord, what a day! I know I look awful. I feel awful. It's over 90 degrees, which is quite rare on this mountain. Let me see if my oh, I should look at the thermometer, not the phone. Oh well, the phone says 90 degrees. The thermometer's outside. So let's see what's going on with the thermometer. Be right back. Ah, the thermometer says it's 88. Feels like 90. That's Fahrenheit. Let's see what that is Celsius. 88 F2 C. Space C. 31.1111 centigrade. It's darn hot. It's less than body temperature, but more than I care to experience. And yeah, next time I do a YouTube, I'll put my dentures on. But today I'm feeling queasy. I have problems keeping food down. I'm down to 90 pounds, and I've also lost 2 inches in height. So 90 pounds would not be that bad for someone who's 5'2", but I was 5'4" before my spine started falling apart. And that's dangerously skinny for someone who's 5'4". I'm trying and trying to find food I can eat and keep down and gain some weight back. And in 2 years of seeing the doctor, I haven't gotten any real help. She did prescribe some digestive enzymes when I insisted that I needed them, but they're the wrong kind. They aren't working for me. So I'm going to go the non-prescription route and get the right kind. So I'll have to do some research, but I do know that I need bromelain. It comes from pineapples. And I have noticed that when I eat pineapples, I digest my food better. Ah, wow. So, anyway, the thing is, I watched my mom go this route in her 50s. I'm 65 now, so I've outlived her because she died at age 58. And I'm pretty sure she found a poison that the coroner would not find unless he was looking for it. Um, she'd been poisons. God only knows why. Well, I know why too. Me and God. She wanted to poison herself. She actually left her keys in the door on the inside and left the door unlocked, had a cup of coffee on the kitchen table, and was found lying on the kitchen floor, stone cold dead. Two autopsies later, the coroner said, well, her heart stopped, but we don't know why it stopped. Well, I can guess. There are several poisons that can cause that, and they're easily obtainable. Oh well. Anyway, the saddest thing about Mom is that we don't miss her. Her death made us sad for her, but we were all better off with her out of our lives. She was a sick puppy, twisted in many ways and very unhappy, and I would say demon possessed. I'm not going to go into specifics, just not going there. But I do believe that demons are real. They're real to me. I'll never forget the time I was under demon attack. I was sleeping on the floor in my son's room because Mom was asleep in my bedroom. And I was paralyzed but shaking, involuntarily shaking. And there was this horrible noise in my head, like buzzing at first, like a hive of bees buzzing, and it grew and grew till it was like ocean swells crashing on the shore. It was so loud it hurt. And my son woke up and was asking me what was wrong. My teeth were clenched, but I managed to communicate that he should get his grandma. So he did, and as soon as she woke up, the attack stopped. So I suspect that she couldn't control her demons while she was sleeping. Then there was the time, different house, different later time. Mom was staying in a room in my house, and my son and I had separate rooms. Hi, Oswald. We were talking about demons and my mother. So their mom's asleep down the hall in her room. I'm asleep in my room, listening to the radio, and thank God I had it tuned to a religious station. That time I had a dream in which a voice that I thought I knew and trusted convinced me to leave my body in the dream. And I suddenly realized that that was a really bad move, and I was trying to climb down and get back into my body. The dream involved a car crash. I thought I had crashed my car and I was going to die in terrible pain. And there was my body in the car, and there was me trying to climb down this silver cord that kind of attached me when the voice told me to cut that cord, but I couldn't climb down into my body. And then suddenly, not a voice, but just something told me, your body isn't in that car, you're in bed asleep. And as soon as I realized that, I fell back into my body in bed, and my bed was just a pad on the floor, and it hurt. Every bone in my spine felt like it was broken, but I was back in my body, and on the bedside radio there was the religious program playing. It happened to be Gene Scott before he went nuts and started buying horses for his girlfriend and selling his original paintings to finance the show horses. He eventually married her. She took over his show after he died, and she just couldn't, she wasn't Gene Scott. She couldn't maintain the audience. Anyway, so those are two times that when mom was asleep, the demons attacked me. And I had an EEG, brain waves. They said, oh, you have good alpha waves. And all they could see was that I blinked my eyes too much. There was too much eye blink, but no signs of a seizure disorder. I've had CAT scans and MRIs on my brain, especially after I fell and cracked my skull. The right side of my brain swelled up when I cracked my skull. Oh, wow. I've got to read that, Oswald. The New Demons by Jacques Ellul. Well, I don't know whether demons are objectively real. God knows, but they are real to me. And on this day, Mom's birthday in 1930, I'm reminded of them because they were my mother's demons. And when Art Bell interviewed Father Malachi Martin, Father Martin said, if your parents were demon possessed, their demons think they have a claim on you. They have a right to take you as well. And they don't have to wait till your parents die. A demon can inhabit more than one person at a time. And that was his problem with the ending of that movie, The Exorcist, where the priest takes the demon into himself and jumps out the window and dies. The demon didn't have to leave the little girl to take him. The demon could have them both. And the real life story didn't end that way. It ended with the boy finally accepting baptism and being well and not even remembering all the horrible things that happened when he was possessed. So let's see. Oh, and then different house. I'm living alone with 8 cats and a Rottweiler. Well, a Rottweiler mix. His mommy was a purebred German Rottweiler, but his daddy was a traveling salesman. Anyway, I go to the hardware and buy a bunch of stuff, including a hammer. I'll get the hammer and show it to you because it isn't the hammer that was the problem. So I kept it. Okay. It's a great big heavy hammer. It's got a waffly head for drywall. I think when you pound a nail into drywall, it doesn't. Well, anyway, I think that's why it's waffly. But I got this big heavy hammer, which is hard for me to hold now. As you can see, it's big. It's heaviest on the business end. Nice long handle, which I have to hold it with two hands. I brought this home and set it on the floor. Went into the kitchen because the cats were mobbing me. So I went into the kitchen and opened a can of cat food and got their bowl. And I heard this thunk out in the living room, a really loud thunk. So I went out to see what they had knocked over. And I found this hammer on my desk, standing up like that. The cat did not lift it off the floor and put it on the desk. No way. I called a local church and asked them to pray for me. Told them what had happened. Not a church I attend. I wouldn't want to admit it to them, or at least I wouldn't have at that time. But I don't know. If I'm ever called to give testimony at the Baptist church, I might talk about this. It was some time, couple years at least later, that I learned that the lady across the street, and I use the word lady loosely, it was a bruja, a Spanish witch, and she didn't like me, didn't approve of me. She was friends with the woman who sold me my house, and it was the seller financed the mortgage, and I couldn't figure out why I was getting so much hassle from the woman who sold me the house. She actually had the nerve to call me on the phone and tell me I had to get rid of my dog, as if she were my landlady. So, and then her husband called as if he were my landlord and said, "You have to get rid of your dog." Well, no, I didn't have to get rid of my dog. I just had to sign a form for the insurance company saying that if my Rottweiler bit anyone, they were not on the hook. On my Rottweiler Bandit was the sweetest, I want to say little, 120-pound dog in the universe. I'd walk him through town and people would stop and pet him. And he was just all happy, smiling, wagging what was left of his tail. People I got him from had his tail cropped. I'm covering my plate of food to keep flies off. I used to have screen doors, but someone deliberately damaged them. But that's not our topic today. Um, well, apparently this bruja, this Spanish witch, was casting spells on me. And they worked because I wasn't saved. And I don't go around, I'm not one of those, "Are you saved?" people. But I hadn't accepted Christ, even though I knew that God was real. I still have intellectual problems with the existence of Christ, Jesus as the Christ. But in my heart, I know. I don't go to Mass. Baptists only have Mass once a month on the first Sunday of every month, like today. I stayed home today. We have uh, communion, not mass, just communion. We have actual soft bread, and we each tear off a little piece and take a little thimble of wine. And then after services, we have an agape, a love feast. Not that kind of love, brotherly love. It's sort of a potluck. I don't care whether historians can verify the existence of historical Jesus. Doesn't matter a whit to me because I experience him as real, as Christ. And Jesus is just our way of saying the Greek way of saying Joshua, which in Hebrew was actually Yeshua. And there's lots of Joshuas in the Bible, especially the one who led the conquest of the Holy Land, I should say reconquest, after Moses died. Let me get a drink of water. Okay, so Mom was long dead, more than 10 years, probably 15 years. I'm not good at keeping track of time, never have been, but it's even worse now. I'm still not saved. I kind of dabble. I read the Bible a lot and I listen to Malachi Martin talking about the exorcisms he's performed and what can get you in the gun sights of a demon and how you can avoid possession. And the fact that the perfectly possessed people don't see a problem. They're just like drug addicts. They don't have a problem. You have a problem if you tell them to quit taking drugs. Same with the perfectly possessed. Well, I was not possessed, I was oppressed. And having a witch cast spells on me wasn't helping. So one night, I'm sound asleep. I shouldn't say night, the sun was starting to come up, so it was very early morning. Here comes that sound again in my ears, and I'm paralyzed. And there's all this buzzing getting louder and louder till it's like ocean waves crashing on the shore, very loud and painful, just like the one back in 1982 when Mom was asleep down the hall. And this thing jumps on me. It's like a shadow person. I would describe it as a sheer black nylon stocking in the shape of a man. I felt his knees hit my belly, his hands grabbing my arms. Now, my body, my physical body was not moving, but I was moving. My energy arms, my energy body was fighting him for all I was worth. He was trying to pull me out of my body. I suppose he wanted to climb into my body, but I don't know that. I just kind of come to that conclusion. And then I'm I'm calling on God. That's what I always did to get relief from these attacks. It always worked, but the attacks would come again, and I haven't touched on all of them, just a couple. The most dramatic. Well, this time it leans over and kind of not quite a whisper, but not a really full voice either. He says, "Now I've got you, you're mine." And at that moment I said, having been informed by Malachi Martin, Father Martin, listening to him on Art Bell, I said, "No." Okay, he says, "You're mine." I said, "No, I'm not. I belong to Jesus Christ." His pain was palpable. His fear filled the air in the room, and he shriveled and floated away and became a mist that dissipated like fog in the sunshine. I wish I could say I've never been attacked again, but I've only experienced a buzzing sound in my ears. And, that time I had managed to talk through clenched teeth, so it wasn't my physical body talking. But now, and it's only been 2 or 3 times since then in over 10 years, I just hear the buzzing and I say, "Get out in the name of Jesus Christ. The power of Christ compels you to leave and never come back." And then I say, "I bind you by the power of the name of Jesus Christ to leave and never come back." And it seems to work. And it's only been a couple times and not recently. So Mom must have had a lot of demons. I got rid of the worst of them, and I haven't experienced or encountered one in, years and years. I can't remember how many years, but I'm not here to argue about whether the historical Jesus existed or who he was or whether he was the Christ, because I know God exists and God knows what I meant when I said Jesus Christ, and that's what counts. If the scriptures are true, then Jesus Christ is God who walked among us in human form. And there are many examples in the Bible, in the Old Testament, which I like a lot, where the angel of the Lord walks and talks with human beings. There's the one who told Joshua, "Take your shoes off, you're standing on holy ground." There's the one who spoke out of the burning bush and told Moses a few things, like, "Go get my people out of Egypt." I think I might have a customer. I see a car at my yard sale. Anyway, let's see what else. Oh, Abraham. 3 angels appeared to Abraham and told him they were going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. But Abraham's nephew Lot lived in Sodom. And Abraham kind of argued a little bit. And so the 2 angels went to Sodom to rescue Lot, and the third one, who was God, stayed behind. Also, while they were there, Abraham washed their feet. They shared a meal that Sarah prepared, and so forth and so on. I'm going to check. I do have customers, but it'll only be. Hello. If you see anything you want, give me a holler. Okay, I'm just gonna let them browse while I continue talking. Okay. Um, wow. So anyway, Mom had demons. Mom did evil things. Mom was a sick puppy. And it's really sad that we don't miss her. We were sad that she died, shocked to some extent, but also relieved. And we all felt relief at her death. I almost said desk. I don't know what was harder on my brother's mom's life or mom's death. She was hard enough on me, but my brothers had it worse. Hi, Philip. Philip, you missed a whole bunch about demons that bothered me. But you can always listen to the replay later. Anyway, I have been doing Bible study on my podcast, and I'm not sure that I will resume the podcast. I said I would be back in September, but I like YouTube. I can schedule the show for any time I want, or just if the inspiration hits, I can just go live or even record something. I'll have to learn more about how to add fancy stuff like music or special effects or little clips. But so far, I'm okay with YouTube, and well, a few years ago I dipped my toes into Spreaker, so I'll get back on Spreaker, where once again I can schedule the show for the time that's convenient for me. Um, Other than that, 88 degrees. No air conditioning here. Supposedly on this mountain, we never need it. It rarely gets much hotter than 80. Oh, I should keep my epic intros. Oh, you mean good afternoon and welcome to another exciting edition of whatever, coming to you live from beautiful downtown Crestline in the San Bernardino Mountains of Southern California's Inland Empire on this Sunday, the 1st of September in the year of our Lord 2019. Those are my intros. Yeah, I'm just not into it today. I'm melting. I need to go dunk my head in the sink again. When my hair is wet, I feel 10 degrees cooler. Um, Still searching for food that I can eat and keep down and benefit from. Most fruits and veggies are okay. Fish seems to be okay in moderation. Chicken in even smaller quantities. But I can't eat beef unless I'm willing to pay for it a few hours later. And I love a good steak, but uh, I'm rarely willing to pay for it. You got hot weather in the UK? Huh. Oh, it was humid too. At least the humidity tends to stay low up here at around 4,300 feet. Less than a mile, but high enough. a mile being 5,280 feet. The Romans used to wet the walls of their homes for cooling. Yeah, you can do that when your house is made of mud and rocks. Hang on, let me just check on my customers. Okay. Um, okay. All right, they're gone. Didn't buy anything, and that's fine with me. Just remember, when you bring a big old heavy hammer home from the hardware store, one that I need two hands to hold, and you set it on the floor, it should not, by some sort of magic, end up standing up on your desk like this while you're in the other room. That happened to me. Scared the living daylights out of me. I called the Presbyterian Church and asked them to pray for me. And I'm a Baptist, but they were the first one I came across in the yellow pages. Yes, I used a phone book. I was kind of on the internet, but not really savvy. And it was dial up. Oh, I don't know. And at that house, where I no longer live for good reason, dishes kept falling off the counter and falling onto the floor and breaking. And the dishes that fell were the ones that had been left behind. When I bought the house and moved in, there were a number of things still there. And these pretty little glass cereal bowls and a few glass tumblers, almost all ended up broken because they would fall onto the floor. And I thought, well, the kitchen counter must not be level. So if it's a little bit wet after I do the dishes and I set the dirty ones there, they're sliding off because the counter isn't level. So I checked it. Oh, the hammer thing, how long ago, Philip? Think it must have been around 2002, thereabouts, when the Bruja, the Spanish witch across the street, was casting spells on me. But this was in '98, the dishes falling off the counter. I just bought the house. So anyway, I figured the counter isn't level. There's a little water on it. These dishes are just sliding downhill and crashing to the floor and breaking because they're glass. So I decided I should do something about that, and I got a level and checked the counter, and it was uh, not level, but it was tilted the other way. These dishes should have slid back against the wall, not off the edge and onto the floor. That house, oh, I don't think the house itself was haunted. I think I was haunted. The spirit level. Oh, Mahalia Jackson. She was a great singer. Haven't thought of her in years. She was awesome. Well, anyway, let's see. I've forgiven for being a Baptist because you love their music. Oh, almost as good as Catholic music? Well, I do like Gregorian chants, but I'm weird. Um, wow. Anyway, yeah, I'm a Baptist backslider. I never show up at the church. My excuse in the winter is there's snow on the ground and I'm on foot. My excuse today is it's too darn hot and I'm on foot and I refuse to ask someone to drive me. It's a block and a half, but that last half a block is uphill, not terribly steep, but for someone as gimpy as me, it's a problem. I do have a walker that I can use, the kind where you can turn around and sit down when you get tired. In my case, when the pain in my back gets so bad that I can't move my legs. My back, sometimes it's the kidney stones. When I walk, they get moved around and my kidneys hurt. And sometimes it's my spine where I have a destroyed disc at L5. That's the lowest lumbar vertebra, right above that big saddle shaped thing, the sacrum. They tell me that my vertebrae, the bones in my back, have some fractures. Lovely. Well, anyway, I can use the walker, turn around and sit down. It also helps me to move a little better and not fall down, since I have this habit of falling. I don't trip and fall, I just fall. And even in my own house, I often walk into the wall instead of going through the doorway. I'll have like a glass in my hand, a glass of water, or a cup of coffee, and I'll pump my elbow on the wall and involuntarily drop it. And then I have a mess to clean up and sometimes a broken coffee mug. Coffee. I don't know. I'm all messed up. And if I didn't have friends helping me, I'd be in assisted living because they shop for my groceries, they cook my meals, and they make sure I get to the doctor when and where I'm supposed to. I do wish our Baptist preacher would teach on the Old Testament. The New Testament, of course, is the focus of Christianity, but the first Christians were Jews, and their Bible was what we call the Old Testament. I know I'm smoking too much, and some of you wish I wouldn't smoke at all, but I enjoy it. And no, I don't have lung cancer. All the doctor ever wants to do is x ray my lungs and give me a flu shot. My lungs are fine. They get a little bit bad in the spring when there's a lot of pollen, but they're fine. I do have chronic bronchitis. You see, I don't inhale these things, I puff on them. That's one of the main reasons I don't smoke pot. You're supposed to drag it into your lungs. Oh my God, no way. I did that once. Never again. I thought I was going to die. I was coughing so bad I couldn't breathe, and it hurt. So, no, 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 no. Larry's only 24. Yeah, I've smoked since I was 14. Yeah, regularly since I was 16. I dabbled from the age of 10, really, but I'm 65. I've been smoking for 50 years, and I probably smoked all my life because both my parents were chain smokers who never opened a window. But I don't have lung cancer, and my lungs are just about right for someone my age who spent the first 11 years of my life in Culver City, which is right next to downtown Los Angeles. So I spent the first 11 years of my life breathing in smog that you would not believe. In those days, if a car was parked and the engine was running, you couldn't stand anywhere near it because you couldn't breathe through the fumes coming out of the tailpipe. It, Smog these days is nothing compared to back then. So my lungs are fine. My guts are another thing entirely. I've had all kinds of tests, given all kinds of samples. They finally talked me into a colonoscopy. They kept saying, "Oh, you should have had this when you were 50." That's 15 years ago. Well, I finally got one a few months back. Nothing. They removed a few polyps. They also did my stomach. Again, nothing, but they removed a few polyps. No cancer, no nothing, no infection. I do from time to time get a peptic ulcer, and then it heals. That's another reason why I don't eat hot chili peppers, besides the fact that they burn my mouth so bad, and I have to, drink a bunch of milk to soothe my mouth and my tummy when I eat something spicy. But I went to a was bothering me, and boy, that was a bad move, tasting 6 different pots of chili. Oh my, that hurt. So anyway, yeah, my health is shot. The doctors are clueless and they don't listen to me. I have to throw a tantrum to get them to focus on the problem I went in for. I'm 90 pounds and I'm shrinking. I used to be 5'4" and now I'm 5'2". Be shrinking as fast as I was. Now 90 pounds wouldn't be so bad for someone who's 5'2", but I'm really 5'4", so I'm on the edge of really starvation. Uh, I've got to gain weight, or at least not lose anymore. And the doctors are no help. So I'm researching and working on it on my own. It's just been a real battle to find foods I can eat. Phil, how tall was Phil? Around 5'10", not quite 5'11". Philip K. Dick, he probably would have been taller if he had not been born prematurely. On the other hand, his son, my son, Christopher, is 5'10", and he was a full-term baby, and he's quite healthy. I mean, so healthy. He knew not to tell me beforehand. He told me afterward. He participated in a cage fight. He said he tapped out within 30 seconds. But he has black belts in things I cannot spell or pronounce. He has taught police officers how to defend themselves. I know one of his black belts is in judo, and he has belts of various colors too. Things like Muay Thai and kickboxing and, oh, I don't know, bunch of stuff I can't spell or pronounce. He really went into martial arts big time, opened and failed twice, primarily because the big chain of martial arts schools used dirty tactics to drive him out of business. Primarily, they lowered their prices until he lost all his students, and then as soon as he closed, they'd raise their prices again. Oh, let's see. Oh, I have to approve Oswald's Krav Maga, Jiu Jitsu, Judo, Kendo, Karate. Yes, you can show that. And Philip Blair, I wonder why it doesn't want chop. Oh, you have a Chinese character. I'll let you show it. I don't know. What is that? Chop suey or something? Anyway, I love when I have to approve a comment. We're all friends here. We don't cuss or harass, right? We're nice people. Now, when it's just me and the computer, that's a different matter. The computer harasses me, so I cuss at it, but not while I'm on the air. So, anyway, Aikido is interesting. There's some uh, gentle martial art for old, frail people like me. Can't remember what it's called. You know, words are to be used, but not on my channel. Go start your own video. Tai Chi, thank you, Oswald. Anyway, I just know one bit of advice my son gave me. I've never had to try it out, and I can't demonstrate it because I'm not strong enough to do it without hurting someone. The other guy, I mean. If someone grabs you and tries to take you away, don't pull away. You're stronger when you're pushing than you are when you're pulling. What you do, if someone's got you by the arm and they're pulling you, you go toward them. And your goal is to knock them over backwards and then punch the living daylights out of them until you can get away. You got to make them let go of you. Now, I'm not going into detail because I don't want to. If I ever have to use it, I don't want to give away clues. But I've never had to try it out. But that's really smart. You're stronger when you're pushing than when you're pulling. And your instinct is to pull away if someone's grabbed you, but you need to overcome that and push them. Darn cigarettes. I do have an e-cig. I have tried vaping. Doesn't really do it for me. They need to add some smoke to it. That could be judo, Philip. If I had to guess, I'd say it was. You use their strength and their weight against them. Larry despises vaping. Well, sometimes I'm around people who don't like the smoke. I don't have those e-cigs that blow up, by the way. I have the old-fashioned kind that you charge with the USB, and their batteries aren't strong enough to blow up, although I wouldn't be surprised if they blew up on an airplane because you're up, 30,000 feet or more. All right, Oswald. I think I'll hide that just 'cause. But I will paraphrase. Vaping is weird. You walk outside a bar and see a bunch of goons, I'll say. Or, let's see, uh, macho men vaping, and they smell like strawberry muffins. Clouds of vape, huh, Larry? Yeah, well, that's the breaks. I did. I had a disposable e-cig once, and it did bother the woman who was near me because it had to imitate smoke. It had hot peppers, and she thought it stunk. Right, I didn't like it either. Fortunately, it was so I disposed of it. I hate hot peppers anyway. Now I've got Camel filters only because I can't afford the imported brands like Dunhill. You see, the British and the Europeans come to Virginia and buy our best tobacco, and then the American tobacco companies buy the crap that's left over and make cigarettes for us. The Camel filters, yeah, they're expensive, but not as expensive as an import with all those fees and shipping costs. And they're part Turkish tobacco. I don't know where they grow the Turkish tobacco, but they are much better than the cheap stuff. Golden Virginia rolling tobacco. Well, tried to make it friendly to our British friend, Oswald. And then Larry smokes Golden Virginia rolling tobacco. Well, maybe someday I can pop out the money for one of those machines that roll them. I've tried the little handheld things. I cannot roll a cigarette to save my life. Even the one where you put the tube on the end and chunk, I can't get those to work right either. And I had some really cool tobacco. When I finally gave up, I put it in the garden to discourage insects. Just sprinkled it around my plants. Well, American Spirit is not the same as when it was Native American Spirit. Native American Spirit. They sold the company, they sold the brand to a company that isn't exactly reliable, and they're even more expensive than Camel filters. Hey, this is good. I started with Pell Mell, no filters, and then I went to Viceroy with filters. And once in a while, I'd have Salem if I had a cold or something. The menthol was nice. And then I went to Winston, and then I went to Winston Gold, which is 100 millimeters. And somewhere in there, I had Benson and Hedges. But really, I'm sticking with Camel filters. And if and they are expensive, but except for right now when I'm smoking too much, I usually don't smoke much because they're expensive. Fat sacks of Kentucky Select. Hmm. Yeah, Benson and Hedges is nice. It's very mild. Yes, Native American Spirit had the Big Chief on their tobacco ads, but now it's just American Spirit and it's a different company. It's not the Indians, or should I say Native Americans, and it really isn't as good, but it's still just as expensive. And if I want to spend that kind of money, I'll go for the imports like Dunhill. Oh, Larry, there's logos and different color packs and all kinds of stuff here, but they all uh, are required to have this notice that cigarettes are bad for you. The attorney, not the attorney, oh heck, the federal doctor guy, not the attorney general, surgeon general says they're bad for you. And there's a move in the works to force them to put pictures of diseased lungs on our cigarette packs. Well, America doesn't import tobacco. Europe imports our tobacco and sells it back to us. Well, Marlboro's gonna do legal marijuana. I don't want marijuana. Although it might stimulate my appetite, I get good enough results with folic acid, a harmless water soluble vitamin in the B, as in boy, vitamin group. It's a good appetite stimulant. I discovered that when I was pregnant and the doctor was giving me folic acid supplements because they're good for the baby. Anyway, it works well enough, but appetite or not, I feel full too soon. So I have to take a break and then eat some more and then take another break. And by the way, I have my homemade wild blackberry jam that I made. Mm. And I'm not allowed to sell it. Apparently, I don't have the right permit, but I can give it away for free. I'm just not allowed to make money on it, and I never did really make money. I was lucky to get back the cost, but people are so happy when I give them my jam. Yeah, I do, Larry, eat small meals, and I don't load up on a giant meal. Even at Thanksgiving when we're supposed to feast, I can't. There was one time in my entire life that I had seconds at Thanksgiving. I'll never forget, I was 14 years old. I actually cleaned my plate and got more turkey and dressing and yams and stuff. One time in my entire life. Usually I can't finish a meal, never have been able to. When I was little, I spent more time sitting at the dining table, staring at the plate, while the rest of the family was watching television because I could not eat a meal, even though, mine was small portions because I was small. So it was kind of a relief when Mom went on strike and quit cooking meals. I could make a bowl of whatever I wanted, and that was all I had to eat because no one was making me eat. Yes, Oswald, I have protein powder and milkshakes. Who got banned? Oh, Larry, they had those horrible pictures on your cigarettes and the pictures got banned? But all the various brands have to be the same color. I don't know. Over here, Dunhills come in red, green, and black. I don't know what the difference is, but I think I smoked the red ones. It's been years since I could afford them. Oh, you like Willie Nelson better than the Marlboro Man, huh? Oh, they do still have the pictures. Ew. Well, you know what? I'm going to get a cigarette case and I'll empty the pack into the case so I don't have to look at diseased lungs. You know, because I smoke, that will be my cause of death. If I get run over by a truck, they'll say smoking killed me. That's just how it is. They like to keep their statistics way up here. Smoking kills you. Well, yeah, I guess it did kill my grandfather. He died when his heart failed, but he was 88 years old. And Granny, who didn't smoke, lived to be 93, which is just the statistical average. Women in their era lived about 5 years longer than men. I'm definitely getting a cigarette case. I used to have one. You see, my mother, returning to the original topic, even when I was an adult with my own house and she was just visiting, would go through my things and throw things in the trash. I could kill her for things she threw away. Things I could have sold. You know the old story about how Mom threw out all my baseball cards? Well, I can kind of understand if you left them behind when you moved out, but I took these things with me or I acquired them after I was on my own. And she would go through my things and toss them out. And one thing she tossed out was my cigarette case that I used. It had cigarettes in it. A joint of meat. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Although here in California, they want to put pictures of suffering cows on packages of beef, diseased, suffering cows. And I suppose they could put pictures of fat people too, or their enlarged hearts and livers. By the way, my liver is enlarged. I have gallstones and kidney stones and various symptoms of chronic pancreatitis. But the doctor has never given me that diagnosis. I figured it out. I mean, if she wrote it in my chart, she never told me. She just wants to x ray my lungs and give me a flu shot. Now, I did take the DPT. Up here in the mountains, you need to have a tetanus booster. You really need it once in a while. And they don't offer the tetanus shot. You have to have the DPT for diphtheria, pertussis, and tetanus. Pertussis is whooping cough, and I'm sick and tired of the idiots in the media saying whooping cough. Whooping is when your parent beats your butt. It's whooping, because when you have whooping cough, your breathing sounds like whoop whoop. It doesn't sound like whoop whoop. It rhymes, it sounds the same as whooping crane, and it's that wading bird, and it's spelled the same, whooping. Diphtheria and pertussis are not likely. I'm not likely to catch them. It's really rare to run across anyone who has it. But tetanus, we have critters up here: raccoons, possums, squirrels. There's a mountain lion and a bear. Oh, coyotes. They're a nuisance and a half. And bears really do poop in the woods, so you want your tetanus shot kept up to date. So I took their shot, but I don't need a flu shot. I had the flu once in 1968, and I wasn't very ill. In fact, I was taking care of the sick people. It was quite an epidemic in 68, around January, I think, January or February, nationwide. Horrible flu epidemic, people dying. I was fine. And then once, when I was 4 years old, so that would have been either December of 58 or January of 59, I had what mom called the Asian flu, but it was really norovirus. And that nearly killed me because um, I threw up while I was asleep. If I had been lying on my back, I would have choked on it. But fortunately, I was on my side. Anyway, that's it. Oh, yeah, I had measles, mumps, chicken pox, scarlet fever, strep throat. They were not a very big deal for me. And then recently I got the measles again. I was in a small shop and this woman comes in and she's talking and she says, "Oh, I just got the measles shot 2 days ago." Well, 2 days after that, I had the measles. So it had to be a different strain from the one that I had before because I should have been immune to it. Owls, yeah, we have owls too. We have a lot of different kinds of owls. Oh, and eagles and hawks. We even have bald eagles. Wild turkey season. Yeah, it probably is wild turkey season here too, as well as Oregon. And about 10 years ago, the people who hunt them had found that the wild turkey population had really dwindled. So they actually bought some wild turkeys and turned them loose in these mountains. And they are really something. They're, I think Benjamin Franklin was right. Our national bird should have been the turkey, not the bald eagle. The bald eagle is basically a pretty buzzard. The turkey, really a gorgeous bird. I've been on for an hour and a quarter. Wow. So now let's see. covered smoking, we've covered demons, we've covered mom and mom's demons. I don't know. I think I will get back to Bible study here and there. There's so much more in this world. But I like to just read from the Bible so you'll know what it really says and not what somebody told you about it. There are things in there that I don't like, but they are not the same as what many critics of the Bible will tell you. What they're criticizing is actually straight out of John Milton's Paradise Lost, not the Bible. What do I think of Lovecraft? Well, oh, it was just Necronomicon week in Providence. Well, there's a guy named Peter Lavenda who knows more about Necronomicon than I do. I do know that Lovecraft must have been writing from experience with the Cthulhu and so forth. I don't believe that he just made it up as a fantasy. He might have studied Celtic myths and legends, but these old gods, especially the ones coming from the sea onto the shore, are really awesome. He tells a very good story, although sometimes I'm going, will you please get on with it? Okay, the guy's in the cave, he's walking along, he comes to a door, there's a niche in the wall. Can something please happen? But that was actually the way people wrote back then. You see, there was a time when books were so expensive and so treasured that people felt cheated if the book was too short and got to the point too fast. They felt that it was a waste of their money if it didn't take a long time to read. They wanted 1,000-page novels, especially the ones that were serialized in the magazines, like Charles Dickens. Much of his work was first published in installments in I forget the name of the magazine, somewhere in London. Right on, a lot of biblical text is very subjective. Yeah, Lovecraft's short stories do have a quicker pace. Speaking of short stories, I think Edgar Allan Poe was seriously shortchanged. His take on horror was so brilliant. Horror is not a car named Christine running over your friends, or a man with an axe shouting, "Here's Johnny." That's just plain comical, by the way. Horror is what Alfred Hitchcock said it was. You got a couple people sitting at a table and you show the audience the bomb under the table. And everyone's going, "Come on, guys, there's a bomb." And the two people at the table just keep on talking and sipping their coffee, totally unaware that there's a bomb under the table. So by the time the bomb goes off, or the alternative, someone finds it and gets rid of it or disarms it, by the time you get to the payday, the moment, I lost the word. By the time you get to payday, the audience is ready to explode. just like the bomb. Yeah, Edgar Allan Poe, especially The Telltale Heart. The reader knows that something is going thump, thump, thump. The policemen don't hear it, but the murderer hears it, and the reader knows it. And the murderer, who's quite obviously insane, explains how and why the murder took place. And he thinks that what he did was perfectly reasonable because his roommate had an evil eye. But you're going, that thump, 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 it's got to mean something. Payoff. Thank you, Philip. Yeah, the payoff. When either the bomb explodes or the explosion is prevented. I don't mean to pick on Stephen King. I love the movies, but I find his novels unreadable. He wouldn't know a sentence if it hit him on the nose. When it isn't a run-on, it's a fragment. And besides, I don't want an entire chapter about some guy shaving in the morning, especially not when it's the first chapter in the book. That one of the first things they teach us in writing classes, fiction writing, is don't start with the guy getting out of bed in the morning and going to the bathroom. Start in the middle of the action. And yet, his stories are so good. It's just the way he writes that's so wrong. I guess that's how you make a 1,000-page novel. You describe every detail of how he's shaving, from the brand of shaving cream to the type of razor, whether it's electric or whatever, and describe every little hair that he shaves off. And frankly, I find it tedious and boring. Douglas Adams. Oh, well, yeah, that would be um, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Thought it started with the Public Works tearing down his house. Well, I guess he gets up in the morning and they're tearing down his house, or trying to. I like the fact that he takes a towel with him when he takes off with the aliens. But I don't mind him getting up in the morning because the sound of the bulldozer woke him up. At least he didn't shave. Well, he did take his towel with him, though. Interesting conversation between Stephen King and John Grisham on YouTube. I'll have to check that out. Now, John Grisham can write. Focus and your attention on the story. And I'm going to have to start reading, probably Grisham, the Born Identity novels. Let's see, Bour, Born Identity. Oh, come on. It's giving me the film. Ahem. Novel, guys. Not everybody is video only. Oh, Oh, Robert Ludlum, of course. I just happened to watch The Bourne Identity, and I really loved the movie. And what I was thinking as I watched it was the fact that different in 1963, different people were pretending to be Lee Harvey Oswald. And when they buried him, his mother looked in the casket and said, "That is not my son." What if there was an Oswald identity, like the Bourne identity, used by different people? Now, I'm not um, convinced that Lee Harvey Oswald had nothing to do with the assassination of President Kennedy. However, the evidence points to him trying to prevent it. He thought he was fighting on the side of the angels. But I do know that there's no way Oswald could have known that the presidential route, the parade route of the cars going to the event, would be on that street, let alone on that street at that time, because the president's limo was not supposed to go that way. It was supposed to go straight down another street and not turn left onto, I always forget the name of the street, but it's the street where the Texas School Book Depository looked down on the president's car. So Oswald, who'd been working there for about a week, must have been psychic or something because the parade route was changed at the last minute on the day that Kennedy arrived at the airport. Okay, what book should I write? The Oswald Identity? Oh, the Motorcade. Yeah, all the news reporters were talking about the parade route. The motorcade, okay. Yeah, I think there's more to the Kennedy assassination than we'll ever know. But when it comes to suspects, I think they all did it. Every one of them had a hand in it. The CIA, maybe not the FBI, but definitely various suspects. There's a lot of them. Maybe even Castro. But you see, there was an attempt in Florida, it failed. Two attempts in Chicago failed. And then in Dallas, they succeeded. So that points to multiple would be assassins and possibly many different groups. And my feeling is that they let LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, they let him think it was his plot, that he was in charge. But on the day that President Kennedy was shot, they were able to drive home. Hey, we could have shot you too. You better do as we say. And especially when LBJ refused to run for a second term. Was that really because of the youth protesting the Vietnam War? I remember people just a few years older than I was chanting, "Hey, hey, LBJ, how many kids did you kill today?" Because our young men and women, but mostly men, because women weren't allowed to carry guns, were just being massacred in Vietnam for no good reason. You know, if we had the will to win that war, we could have won it easily and years earlier. We shouldn't have been there in the first place, but once we were there, we should have actually seriously tried to win. Yeah, they're never going to release the remaining documents about the JFK assassination. I've always held that they were waiting for people like me who remember that day to die. But now I think that even after I'm dead, they won't ever release all the documents. And maybe it's good that they don't. But we do want to know who really killed our president. Now, I was a kid, but my parents and most adults around me did not like Kennedy. They thought he was a communist. But I've been viewing some of his speeches on YouTube, of course. He was more conservative than most Republicans today. And unlike the politicians, he called this nation a republic. He wasn't here to save our democracy. Both Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican, and LBJ, a Democrat, kept talking about democracy. But in between was John Fitzgerald Kennedy talking about the republic. And this nation is supposed to be a republic, but it's becoming a mob. It's it is not inconceivable that we could have a reign of terror and a bloodbath, much like the French Revolution, with everybody going to the guillotine. Oh, Larry, wish you could stay longer. I can't really stay a whole lot longer myself. Yeah, anti Catholicism was rampant. Yeah, so JFK was not only a communist, he was a Catholic. Well, people were afraid he would obey the Pope once he was president, but he didn't. He kept his politics and religion separate. Kennedy was Irish. He had to be a Catholic. No choice. Let me get more water. The one really suspicious thing that I saw on the network news the day Kennedy was shot was the television announcer saying, man and a woman running across the bridge. And then the camera panned over to the bridge that went over the road. And it played over and over. They kept rerunning things. Well, nothing ever came of that. No one chased them down. No one investigated. No one even looked at the camera footage to see who this man and woman were. The Appalachian Scotch Irish were Ulster Protestants. Yeah, but the Kennedys were Irish Catholic. They were city folk and mob connected, Irish mob. And yet the Italian mob helped Kennedy get votes when he wanted to be president. Go figure. The Irish mob and the Italian mafia were supposed to be enemies, or at least competitors. Oh well. They say that Jimmy Hoffa delivered the votes that Kennedy needed. And the main reason that Lyndon Johnson was his vice president was that Johnson could carry Texas. Also, not above board, Texas elections were rigged under Johnson. He was the governor of Texas at one time. Well, you see, Philip, we were stupid. We didn't know that a communist couldn't be a Catholic. And I'm not sure that Kennedy was a devout Catholic anyway. It was just, he had no choice. He was born into it. Anyway, Kennedy, like Eisenhower, warned us against the deep state. Eisenhower called it the military industrial complex, and Kennedy talked about secrecy. He promised to be transparent, open, and honest with the media. And he asked the media to criticize him if they thought he was doing something wrong. Boy, how refreshing. Now, I tend to like Trump, but I don't see that in him. I hear all this fake news. Well, maybe it is fake. And I'm not afraid of Trump. I don't think he's a bigot, a racist, or a Hitler, but I do see the potential for really dirty dealings in the White House. I think we need to keep an eye on him. But he's so much better than some of the presidents we've had in the past. And I don't know. Of course, he's mob connected. He built hotels in New York and New Jersey. Of course, he is. But you know what? The mafia is more patriotic than a lot of ordinary, honest folk. They love this country. Mobsters have been known to help our military intelligence, mostly in World War II, while they were sitting in prison. I can't remember a name, but Dr. Joseph P. Farrell talked about one in particular who was helping the US military do spying in Italy during World War II. And this particular mobster was sitting in prison at the time. But he was a criminal, but he loved this country, this republic. Democracy is the French Revolution, guillotines, blood in the streets. This is a republic. Rome was a republic before Caesar crossed the Rubicon and took over by force and turned Rome into an empire. And things went downhill from there. They started entertaining the masses with bread and circuses. And circuses at first were chariot races, which were brutal enough, and then became gladiators and Christians and anybody that the emperor or the senate didn't like being massacred in the arena for the entertainment of the masses. That's what happens when you no longer have your republic. So we need to fight for our republic and pray for our republic, not democracy. Let's see. Oh, yeah, the mob is still here. Yeah, Plato didn't like democracy. They killed his friend. Yeah, Socrates. Well, Socrates had a choice. They left the door open, leave if he wanted to, but he would have been exiled. And for a citizen of Athens to be exiled, it might as well be death. He'd be reduced to begging for charity. In the Greek city states, if you were not a citizen, you were either a slave or worse, an outcast. So Socrates drank the poison rather than escape, even though the guards left the door unlocked so he could escape. But Plato's idea of utopia is great if you're a philosopher king, sucks if you aren't. You see, it's based on what he knew of Atlantis, where the big high muckety mucks who were half god and only half human were in charge of everything, and everyone else had to work for them. Kind of like the Middle Ages when the lord of the manor owned all the land and everyone else was a tenant farmer, or a merchant who had to pay taxes to the lord. And if the lord decided to go to war, or if his superior lord ordered him to go to war, all these farmers would be sent into battle, not with weapons, but just with whatever farm tools they could scrounge up to fight with. I don't know if it's Lucky Luciani, Philip. I just don't remember. But yeah, the mob is alive and kicking, and around here, Southern California, it's even worse. So I'll see you, Oswald. Thanks for coming. Uh, Around here, it's the Armenian mob. I don't consider them near as honorable as the Italian mob, and I don't know much about the Irish mob, but I would consider them more honorable and decent than the Armenians. Now, just the mob, not the actual people, ordinary people. I know Armenian people, and most of them were Christians who fled to the United States when uh, Turkey was engaged in killing all the Armenians within their borders. The Turks still refuse to acknowledge it, but they basically had a death march that would rival or perhaps even surpass the Trail of Tears in which the Cherokee were marched from Georgia to Oklahoma. People were starving and dying because they couldn't walk any farther. So most of the Armenians who came to this country were Christian Armenians who fled from the Turkish oppression. By the way, the Kardashians, like Kim Kardashian, are Armenian. Got nothing against them, although I'm not interested in their celebrity. But the Armenian mob is a different animal entirely. Um, Enough said. If I were to say anything specific, they might come after me too. All right. Anyway, it's been let's see, an hour and 45, and I really got to get going myself. So thank you all for listening, and I'll be back from time to time. I know I kind of didn't get on YouTube for a while. I had too much going on, but things should be better now. I should have more time, and I might even put on my dentures and stuff like that. But it's been great having you guys here chatting. Thank you all for listening, and good night and God bless. Let's see. Gotta type. Hard to type and talk at the same time. Okay. And 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.